Well, hi, everybody. It's Reanimated. It's episode 336. My name's Stuart. I'm California host. New York host is H.A. Conrad, and she's coming at us this morning from the balmy East Coast. How are you?
I'm balmy in Brooklyn. I need more iced coffee, but I'm out, so I guess I'll just have to suffer along while we chat.
Hopefully
Um,
not en balmy.
yeah, not yet anyway, but possible. I will say this is the time of year when you know, it kind of feels like there are things that are you smell things in the street and you don't really want to know what they are, and they could be corpses. It's true. But
Or
anyway, it's just like
more likely animal than human, I
oh
would
yes,
imagine.
yes. One would hope so. One would hope so, but it's New York, so you never know.
Hey, I've got
Um,
a New York newbie question for you. We've talked before about like how the subways would flood in the case of like a world after humans scenario, and we've
oh
seen
yeah.
it happen in heavy rains.
Hmm.
And you have mentioned how that's basically just the Hudson River coming back to take its
Yep,
own, right?
pretty much.
Um, how far up the Hudson would you have to go for it to be drinking water? I guess is my
Oh,
question.
to be potable?
Like it's brackish, I assume, around New York because that's a harbor,
Yep.
right? Um, so yeah, like when is the Hudson like good?
So it like kind of turns fresh like much further up because I mean Hudson, like it's a pretty big bay.
Yeah.
Um, so I like, and actually, interestingly, more recently, and this wasn't in the Hudson, but I think it was like in the Connecticut River, there was some poor little dolphin, I think, that somehow managed to swim up to where it was fresh instead of salt.
And had
Um,
some health issues or was just like
I
chilling.
think they were I think it got separated from its pod, and um, it like I think they were hoping that it would sort of find its way back to the salt water. So I don't know. I haven't tracked what happened to it recently. Hudson, I think that it's like it depends on the time of year because it's basically like an estuary. So depending on like a lot of things is when that salt line kind of like moves around. I want to say that way up into Westchester, it's salt.
Wow.
I want to say like in the summertime, and I feel like in the summertime it's worse somehow because maybe of all the rainfall and stuff like that. So I know that it at least goes up to Yonkers, but I think I don't want to say
It's okay. You
that.
don't have to give me like the right answer. I'm just curious. And I know that like
Aha!
and that's
I just found it. I just found
that
it.
was you're very fast at the internet research.
So anyway, yeah, so apparently it is often that up by Yonkers, but apparently it can go up to Newburgh, where it is you know, where it depends on the time of year, but that's kind of interesting.
That's
And
very interesting. And I, as a side note, I'm unable to hear the word Yonkers without thinking of the Battle of Yonkers from World War
yes,
Z.
well, there you go. And there's also, yeah. So that's kind of interesting. The other interesting thing that's been happening recently is that it actually has been, so polluted that there was like basically things could not live in it for a while. So it used to be an incredibly rich estuary, and it really like had just like so many different kinds of life, but specifically like oysters. And that's been something that of late they did a lot to like try to clean and whatever. And so I guess the oyster beds are coming back, which is good news. Um,
Hudson oysters. I can't wait.
I don't know that anybody should be eating those right now.
I mean, they're good just to
Um,
clean things, right? They're like filtration systems in a way.
yeah. So yeah, anyway, so there's
Fascinating. There's our
that.
geography lesson for the morning. Thank you for that, HA.
Yeah, I know. But it
um,
is kind of, I mean, but yeah, but and then the thing about the subways flooding, it's kind of interesting because it isn't just like it's like the sort of what's been happening, especially this summer, more so, and it happened last summer, and there was some last summer and fall, and there were some tragic consequences. Because if you have these really big downpours just sort of suddenly coming, the whole system, like the drainage system in the city, can't deal with it. So
hmm.
you'll see all these like videos of subways basically having waterfalls going down the steps and like even in the sort of like ceilings of the subway and things like that. And what happened, I think it was this past fall, there was sort of like flash flooding, and people died up in Harlem, like who were in basement apartments, because the
Yeah.
water came up so quickly. And so
When are you guys getting a
honestly,
seawall? When are you getting your seawall fixed up?
oh God, I don't know when. I mean, they keep talking about it. We keep seeing photos, but I'm worried that it's going to be like the Venetian seawall that took 20 plus years to make. And I will say it's working. It seems to be working in Venice. So I do have hope, but there seems to be a lot of like bureaucratic red tape to get through. So
Mhm.
anyway, so we'll see when the zombie apocalypse hits, if any of this comes true. But I do think unless they do something, yeah, the ocean's going to take back a lot of New York.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, speaking of taking things back, let's take things back to a couple days ago at San Diego Comic-Con, where a lot of news dropped. I don't think this is going to be us breaking or scooping anything for anybody who's been paying attention over the weekend. But what was your what was the announcement that you were most excited about from Comic-Con that you've seen so far?
I admit that I really loved that like Rick and Michonne, or the actors, showed up as like a pretty like a surprise thing. And I'm cool with this announcement that we saw, and I thought that was kind of a baller thing to do.
And that's the
Um
announcement that instead of the fabled three Rick straight to TV movies that they talked about doing for hundreds of years, they're just going to do a 6 episode miniseries with Rick and Michonne. So that is kind of interesting. Yeah, and I thought that was a big surprise for, I think, for a lot of fans, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, look, it's been kind of radio silence about this. Like everybody's like, well, what's going on with these movies? And so now I guess we know. And I mean, look, I kind of like this idea because I think it gives you a little bit more flexibility, and maybe we get a little bit more story out of it, and instead of limiting it to like just a feature film. Because I think you and I talked about this, is like, what are they going to fit into a feature film to be able to like push this along. So I like the idea of a miniseries. I love these actors, so I'm pretty excited for Michonne and Rick to be reunited.
Here's
And
my initial not criticism, but yeah, kind of a, like I don't, it's not a criticism. I want them to meet my expectations here. It had better not just be a Rick and Michonne show. That's what, like,
oh no,
all the
I don't.
preamble talked about was like their love for each other and how it transcends blah blah. I'm like, how about we just talk about your two children? Like, let's get Judith in there and let's get
Yeah,
RJ,
yeah. Because
because
again,
otherwise this is just a show about like deadbeat parents, and I'm not really there for that. I want to see them get their
well,
damn
and that, I
kids.
mean, look, that has been a big gap in what, you and I've talked about it extensively, that we just don't believe that either of these two would stay away from their children, given how much those relationships were built up. And I mean, I know Andrew Lincoln was very burned out. I know Danae Guerrera was also burned out. And also they're both in, I mean, I don't know so much about Andrew Lincoln, if he's been in a lot, because it feels like he's not been very present in other things.
I
Maybe I'm
think he's
wrong.
just been doing English stuff. Like he did like a Christmas Story and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
But not like, we haven't seen him as much as her. She's definitely been in lots of stuff.
Yeah,
And
she's out there getting her
um
EGOT.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm guessing there's also like they had to change the story because of their filming schedules and things like that. But I agree with you. I would really like to see, like, hey, can we can we see what happened with with uh with your children, whatever. I will admit I wasn't so excited to see that Scott Gimple was going to be the showrunner for the series. But
He's done okay in the past. Yeah, I think, and he hasn't actually had his hands on a show directly in years, right? He's been working through people, the puppet master. We'll see.
I don't know, but I would really have preferred to see Angela in there,
Oh,
honestly.
oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think she's just, to me, she's the one person that's driving this in any way that makes sense personally. But that was the one part that I was like, oh man.
We'll get a chance to see another showrunner in action later this summer, because there was also a 2 minute trailer for Tales of the Walking Dead, and they had a panel, which I haven't watched any of it, but Channing Powell is the showrunner for that. I guess you could call that a mini series too. I think it's only six episodes.
Yeah.
And the, you know, like from the clips we're seeing from that show, I feel like it's looking super engaging. Terry Crews playing a role that I've never seen him in, anything like that.
Mm.
And I'm really excited for the Parker Posey, Jillian Bell storyline, because
All right.
that looks like day one of the apocalypse, and there's gonna be a fair amount of metaphor about COVID in there too, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. I need to pause this show for one moment of appreciation for my husband who just showed up with a full iced coffee for me.
What a saint.
You can hear the ice cubes going. It's amazing. I'm pretty
Well,
excited about this.
that's great.
Mm.
Good for you.
Sorry.
No need to pause the show for that. That is that's good content right there. Everybody wants to hear somebody drinking a nice coffee.
I think I would. I
It's
don't
called
know.
mukbang, and it's a whole internet sensation. Um,
um,
but yeah,
okay,
so
sorry.
did you have any takeaways from the did you watch the 2 minute trailer for Tales of the Walking Dead?
I did, and it hasn't to me, it's like, it's what it is. And I like I'm excited about it. I do run it. I'm really excited to see this, but I'm also in this sort of like, you and I have talked a lot. I don't know that much more was revealed in this
Yeah.
other, I just wanted them to get like, and I almost don't want to see more until we actually start to watch the
You
series.
and I have never been super into Walking Dead trailers because I think we
Yeah.
do like to just watch the show and kind of immerse ourselves in it. But I guess the hype for this series is compelling me to do more. And you know, like seeing oh god, what the hell, Goose's name, Goose is in it, right? And he's playing
Yeah.
like this scientific role.
Yep.
I don't know, I'm just like, even those little tidbits I saw were enough to get me kind of interested, even more interested. So
You're,
I'm lining up for this one. It's going to be
Oh,
fun.
I'm definitely excited to see it. And it's not that I'm not interested and not interested in seeing these little tidbits, but I would almost prefer to be surprised.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from on it.
And I did also watch most of the 2 minute trailer for the season 11-3. But then I was also just like, yeah, I don't want to know what
Yeah.
plot points are coming. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of Lance Hornsby and a lot of Daryl.
Yep.
And I assume there's going to have to be some Judith and RJ getting out of Commonwealth and going to find Alex, going to find Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera somehow. Really, yeah, I don't want to understress how much I think that's an important element of their story, unless this is just like a post-apocalyptic family storytelling where it's like nobody's families are their own anymore. Everybody's going to be raised by other people, and that's just the thing that happens. Honestly, that isn't completely unrealistic, I feel like. So
Yeah.
so I did watch that other trailer also, but I don't really have much in terms of takeaways. And then there was the Marvel
Yeah. So
stuff.
so like back in March, Disney actually added parental controls, and that was a bit of a signal that they were gonna have more like mature content. And this is one of the pieces of content that apparently it's going to be R-rated. Going to be out in 2024. And they have basically said that there's going to be a lot more gore in this. Um, and that they made this announcement at like Comic-Con basically. So there was like a whole like panel about it, and they basically, it was the executives kind of like stirring up the pot and being like, yeah, there's going to be a lot more like gore. And it's the same universe that was in the What If series.
I saw
So
one thing that said they were going to continue that story
yep.
from the cliffhanger. I'm trying to remember who was even left alive. Was it just Falcon?
I don't know,
No.
but they're gonna have Kamala Khan in this. They're gonna have like a couple other people, some
Yeah,
new.
like Simu Liu. I think they
Yep,
had,
yep, yep.
yeah. I did see a few other people, and
And then
Kate Bishop.
and there's gonna be some Black Widows. I guess some of them are sort of
Yeah.
like in this. So it's gonna be, I think definitely for I think they're trying to get everybody really really excited about this. And so anyway, so we shall see, but it's, the whole like zombie piece, we'll have to see what comes of this. I don't think Kyle will be really excited about this, but
We'll
we'll
see. We'll
see.
find out. We didn't get any kind of I mean, the only images I saw were screen captures that were probably taken
Yeah, there was
illegally. So it was hard to see what the art style is going to be, but there were a bunch of these little like character stills, but they I couldn't tell from that like if the animation style was going to be similar to What If or not. They also announced the second season of What If, which will only continue to confuse me as I look at the Marvel universe. But there we go.
Yeah.
And I think that was all we had for zombies at
Yeah.
Comic-Con. Was there any other takeaways that you?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay.
And so I think we're gonna talk about the Resident Evil television series. We're continuing on, so we're talking about episodes 2 and 3. And just before we start recording today, we were talking about how the ratings on like Rotten Tomatoes and others are really like a lot of 1-star ratings, which I mean, look, we haven't watched the complete series, so I will, maybe there's something that turns so weird that this would warrant it, but I feel like at least what we've seen in these next 2 episodes, I feel like this is I still stand by what I said at the beginning, which is this is just like this really fun romp. And I really like a lot of the things they have done with this. I think that there's definitely some of this sort of like it's like there's some teen drama and that kind of thing that they're bringing into this, but I think like the overall the makeup of the show and the actors and the decisions they've made, I've just really enjoyed it. And so I don't know why, other than from some, if I go at this from like another perspective, meaning that there's some racism involved, which I suspect may be the case, why these ratings are so low, because I don't know. What did you think, Stuart? Were
So they
you
have gone up. The audience score has increased by 4 percentage points over since last week when we were looking at it. It was 22%. Now it's 26. But like yeah, the number of 1-star reviews continues, and then you have the odd 4-star review that's like, I don't really understand these negative reviews. The justification given in a lot of the 1-star reviews is like, you're killing my lore, this is my show, and there are a few that are like, here you go again, messing with the race and gender of the characters, who my beloved
yeah.
characters. So yeah, that's definitely, it's not even like hidden, it's in there.
Oh no, it's totally in there. It's racist, it's sexist, and I think what confuses me so much about this is that even with like the film series, they have reinvented this and the storylines and the characters like so many times. They've taken, I mean, and it's sort of like it's in the framework of a Resident Evil, whatever you want to have it, like a storyline. But we've seen them reinvent things in this particular universe so many times. And I personally think that this is one of the better reinventions, at least as far as what we've watched so far.
And
So,
yes, and it is certainly a reinvention, but it's also like some of what's coming into like clicking into place for me watching these episodes is they're also mentioning stuff that happened in the past. It's like very much in the background. There's a scene in the second episode that we watched today where Jade is looking at some redacted websites, and I like paused the screen and I was reading some of the text that she really scrolled past very quickly, and they're talking about Racoon City, and they're
yep,
talking about Lisa Trevor,
yep.
like basically parts of the plot at least from the Welcome to Raccoon City movie, which we just recently watched, which makes me wonder, are these actually
Mm-hmm.
connected in canon or in world, except for the fact that Albert Wesker has switched actors between those two, between the movie and this show. But this is supposed to be happening, like 20 years later or after the events of Raccoon City. And then when you add in the fact that there's a 14-year time jump
Yeah.
within this series, there's lots of ground to cover chronologically. But yeah, I agree. Like, to me, we've seen 3 out of the 8 episodes of the show so far. I'm not seeing any 1-star material happening.
Oh,
So it will, I guess jury's still out for the show, the series overall. But so far, this is a good show. It continues to have good performances, good writing, good effects.
yeah.
And I don't think I'm being too forgiving in that approach.
No, me neither. I will say I'm generally enjoying more of the younger Jade and Billie storyline, mainly because I just like to see how things start,
I think
basically.
that's the storyline that some people are saying is to CW, like to teen drama.
Right. But I kind of like it. And we all know that they don't know everything. So I guess that's a little bit of what I'm enjoying.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, like, their dad, I think, is being a little too like, uh, if I do have a criticism, it's that he knows exactly what's happening, and we'll get into it. But I feel
Mm,
like he's giving Billie a little too much freedom, if you ask me. but but
yeah.
um, but anyway, we like the last episode ended where we know that, Billie is actually alive, but they were still sort of stuck in that, like, I guess, like, I don't want to call it a vestibule, but like foyer area, I guess, where, and their dad, and they were trying to get out, but Billie had been bitten by the dog.
And then kind of gone into shock or
Yeah,
passed out
yeah,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah. Like alarms blaring, red lights flashing red, which we know all about red lights being red, HA.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Um, the and then like, Jade is like trying to desperately to wake her up, and she wakes up and says a joke about like, I don't think I'm a dog person anymore. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is good. It's good stuff right here. Good content. I do
Mhm.
have took some umbrage with the fact that instead of like leaving the building and going and waiting for the authorities, which is would have been my initial reaction,
Uh-huh.
like to get to a hospital, they go and sit in an office in an office chair. And I think Jade makes a series of like, I mean, she's a teenager. It's fine. She makes a series of poor decisions in terms of just first aid throughout this episode. Because after
Yep.
then, Albert Wesker, or Al, as Evelyn calls him several times, well, after he arrives and sends them on their way, she doesn't give her first aid. Like she's just at home, like bleeding into the pillows on their
Yeah, and
upholstery.
and she was so worried about her going to the hospital that I felt like that was kind of strange. So,
I mean,
um,
it's a good thing that they didn't. Like, I get it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but she could have at least been washing and dressing the bite. I feel like, I mean, even a 15, 16-year-old, I feel like would know. Maybe not. Maybe she'd be putting like tiny band-aids on it, and it would all have to be taken off and redone or
Yeah,
something. But
yeah,
I would assume that people know how to wash cuts at least.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I think, watching, I do like how Albert is basically like covering their tracks. So he's like wiping the computers. He
He's
tries to
so
make it
prepared.
like, he seems very calm, and I do like, he wipes all the stuff,
But
and
dude just walks around with a virus on a thumb drive in his pocket. Like,
I don't know, but I would say it takes security an awful long time to show up, given
that
what they
too.
know that's in there, but whatever. And then we do get an introduction to Evelyn Marcus, which, she's really good and creepy, and I really love her sort of, like, she immediately is terrifying, or I find her terrifying. I don't know.
Just her first interaction, like you can't even see her. You just hear her chewing out a security guy, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
there's like, she is really I don't know, just and she's played by Paula Nunez, and she's really like, um I don't know, she's incredibly like, you sense that she's in charge, you sense that she's got a lot of power. She's like, really, I don't know, I found her incredibly creepy and intimidating, so I was really enjoying like her basically her entrance.
yeah, she's the kind of
And
person that you would never really want to be talking to,
right,
because
right.
the calculations going on there are myriad.
Right. And so she's like the daughter of Dr. Marcus. So like, that's sort of continuing the storyline a bit. But this performance, we also see like um an interaction with her and her wife, which is,
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. It was, it's supposed to humanize her, but it also kind of does the opposite, because even after her wife seemingly threatens to leave her,
Mm-hmm.
she casually threatens Albert Wesker's family, and she doesn't really, but she's just like, "Say hi to your kids for me," which I
Right,
feel
but
like in any kind of show like this is a threat. Maybe she means it like sincerely, but
you can
since
also,
his kids don't even know who she is,
right,
yeah,
right.
it's a threat.
And you can also see that she's pissed that he has seen this weakness, basically, like that
Yeah,
she's seen this interaction.
well, Lance Reddick is just like, I should go in the
Yeah,
middle of
he's
that
just sort of
scene.
like feeling awkward here. And the sort of the basis of this little interaction is that her wife suddenly shows up, which feels a little unlikely, because she's just like, oh, I heard you were here and you didn't come home, and that felt a little unlikely that she would just pop up at Umbrella Corp, but whatever. But it does show that there's something definitely, like, despite her, maybe it's meant to sort of show why she's being such a biatch, but whatever. But in any case, you do it instills this fear in you, or at least for me, that I was like, oh God, like, you kind of can see what he's dealing with and why he took these steps to make sure that his kids were basically shielded from this person.
I mean, yeah, we see this is clearly a character with a lot of layers and levels, and
Yep.
he knows a lot that we don't know too. And I like that about him. Like, why is he injecting himself with their blood? Why does she
Yep.
refer to his kids as his blood
Blood
bags?
bags.
I don't
Yep.
remember if that was in the first or second episode that we're looking at here today, but
Yeah.
like, and yeah, like the rapidity or the tempo of his self injections. Evelyn's read in on all that. She knows about all of that, and that's really kind of a disturbing line in this show for his story. And we'll have to see where it goes. But he is at the same time, and this is part of the performance and part of their casting decision with Lance Reddick. Like, he is playing a very sympathetic
Yeah.
version of Albert Wesker so far,
Yes. He is. He is.
but there's it's Albert Wesker, so I think if so they're assuming, like, anybody who knows anything about the lore knows that this is not a good guy necessarily. Nope. So it's going to be interesting to keep watching and see what they do.
Right. And we also have a lot going on in this particular world with because look, Jade is definitely like, okay, there's lots of weird stuff going on. Why dad won't let us go to the hospital? Like, she feels like and look, Billie is not looking too good. There's a lot that goes on with her recovery or like, basically, at least Albert has the forethought to have her stay home, because probably he's scared she's going to go crazy. But short of like giving her like a little bit of a sedative, and like she's basically kind of like free to run around. And I think Jade thinks obviously there's some shady things that have happened and shady things going on, so she kind of like starts to investigate and enlist the help of what's his name?
Simon Marcus, it turns out.
Simon Marcus, who, yeah.
Was the like, that was kind of unexpected, but he's just, a hacker.
Yeah.
A hacker skater. And I guess this is probably where that CW element could be felt too, because there is a little bit of an interest there, but it's so mild compared with other shows that it's I don't find it annoying at all. And I like the fact that Jade basically just tells him what to do and is very cruel to him in almost all their interactions. Actually, yes, in every one of their interactions.
Yep,
she is thankless and bossy, and then says things like, you love it, or something along those lines. And I'm just like, yeah, I guess he must, because I don't see why he would be doing you any favors.
However, I will take issue with like her quote unquote investigation. And so I like how they tie in the, seeing what happened in Racoon City. There's like old footage of different things, and she's reaching out to somebody who turns out to be like the guy who's running this like website, which has the truth about Umbrella Corporation. And this is somebody that is totally, she reaches out in a way that is like incredibly, to me, like, if she's trying to keep secrets or trying to like keep her identity like cloaked, she's not doing a very good job. Like, she just kind of put everything all out there. So I was like, all right, that's not the smartest thing to do. You have no idea who this crazy person is, but okay, cool. And
her email address was at least like, I think it was first name last initial numbers at Gmail.
I don't know, but anyway, it was like, so we got that going on, and we've got and Angel Rubio, who is like the one who's sort of running all of this sort of secret stuff about Umbrella, trying to like reveal the truth. And so like that is a different element of the story, and you can't, so there's a lot coming together, and a lot sort of an unveiling for Jade that there are things with Umbrella that are shady. Um, you would also think that if Simon had actually been sort of going around the whole the whatever firewall or any security things Umbrella had set up, that he would know that some of this stuff was happening, but I guess not. And then the freakiest thing in this whole episode thought was like Billie's clear infection
Yeah.
is like really disturbing.
Well, it gets clearer even in episode
Mhm.
3, which is the light. But yeah, in this one, I think it's most telegraphed by Pablo, her little dog, at the
Yeah,
end of the episode when Pablo starts barking at her, and then she tries to take him for a walk, and
and he's scared of her.
the gym bro like rescue or yeah picks him up and is like, is this your dog? But he keeps barking at her, and then she ends up punching the guy and running away. And I don't know, part of me kind of enjoyed that interaction.
I enjoyed the interaction, but I also like it shows you that she's got a lot more power. And I think we kind of got this sense before. But it's still unclear whether that power is from this infection or whether it's just her.
Yeah, I mean, do you
Um,
feel like she had super strength in that moment, or
yeah, because
she just cold cocked him, like punched
she
him in the
did
face?
she did, but like he kind of went pretty far.
Yeah,
So
I guess he did fall down, but I have to imagine that if I was punched even by just a 16-year-old girl and I wasn't expecting it right in the nose, I'd probably want to fall down too.
right.
It doesn't matter how strong they are.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know.
And then the other part of this episode, which I it's fine, but it was like this is just sort of the present day 2036 Jade, where we see like you know,
Well, she's jumping off the side of Brighton Freehold. Honestly, I
yeah.
really enjoyed this 2036 storyline in this episode. I mean, I'm kind of enjoying both of them, but I think you said earlier that you prefer the high school storyline, and I think I'm preferring the modern,
Oh,
whatever you want to call it,
interesting.
the future storyline.
I just like how I just like watching how the story unfolds. I like the future storyline too. It just feels like a lot of the same to me. Like she
Yeah,
runs,
I
she
just like
gets
me some
caught, she runs,
post-apocalyptic storylines, man. So like when
maybe.
we get to go to these different locations and see the huddled masses around there, like their barrels that are on fire and the armed guards and stuff, I'm like, well, this is kind of cool.
Right.
So she not only manages to jump off the side of the Brighton Freehold and doesn't break any legs.
Right.
Okay, good for her. And then Baxter has his guards shooting the zombies instead of her. He wants her alive. I guess that's good for her. Manages to then hitch a ride with like the last survivor of the Brighton
Yeah.
Freehold,
Which doesn't
who
work out well for that person.
he doesn't work out well for him. He probably should have just driven straight under those stabby pipes and scraped her off the top of his van if he
Yeah.
wanted to live longer. Instead, he quickly gets taken out by these zombies who just keep flopping off of like, I don't know, an overpass or something. Like, yeah, it's too bad he had like slow reactions. Jade, meanwhile, like just busts through the sunroof and drives off and takes care of business. Ends up in Dover and has these amazing interactions and like a fun little storyline with Melinda and Barry.
Yeah.
Melinda, the cat lady, and her husband
Yeah.
Barry.
Yeah,
Uh,
that actually was a pretty funny. That whole thing was really strange, but kind of awesome.
it's like any scene with Baxter in it, also, and he comes into it later. It's just funny. Like
Yeah.
the dude is there for comic relief, and he's a villain. Like I don't know, man. It's working for me. And Melinda is clearly there, sort of, yeah, like for comic relief, but unsettling because of the cats.
Yeah, and I mean it's really like, you know, the cats are all around and she's like, "Oh, I don't even remember that one's name or whatever," because she's been basically feeding them to her zombie husband.
Yeah,
I actually thought that that was a pretty funny and weird scene, and I'll admit I was not expecting that turn quite so much, and like
yeah,
um Jade basically is like the cat thing's really effed up, woman.
yeah.
And and he's in the bathroom, and like there, of course, it's just like I don't know. The whole thing is very like very weird and strange, but also strangely funny. So basically Jade has to get some papers out of his pocket, which could be like contacts so she can get out of the country. And Melinda's still like, oh, he could be cured or something, right? Like she doesn't want to kill him, but Jade ends up having to just because he was gonna attack
She
because he
saves
gets out of
Melinda's life. It's but
yeah.
thanklessly, and Melinda turns on her so fast when Baxter shows up that I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Also, I think
Right.
it means that Melinda's might be the only person that Baxter's interacted with who doesn't end up dead. So good for
Right.
her, I
And
guess.
I was actually waiting for that to happen and it didn't. He just was like, "Oh, you're sort of like weird and creepy, but all right, I'm on board with it." Um and like Jade going off to like this pub and meeting Sharon, which I thought was really funny. Because it's like she has to take this ferry. That's like
Mm-hmm.
hilarious reference, like
Yep, the
um
ferryman.
the ferryman. And it kind of goes a different way because like he's really not psyched to see her because I guess Barry had not been the most up and up person, or at least that's what he says.
Well, he
um
hadn't paid him or whatever, so
or
she comes.
whatever it was.
She
Yeah.
brings she doesn't have enough to pay for her passage.
Yeah.
And so she steals somebody else's, which is it's pretty messed up. But hey, you got to do what you got to do in the dystopian future.
Right.
And then like kind of inevitably Umbrella catches up. Umbrella just keeps catching up.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be like the theme until they take her in.
Also, I will say anybody hanging out with her is definitely just should run because she is definitely not somebody they should be around. Like, so
Yeah.
pretty much has come to pass that anybody she interacts with ends up dead from Umbrella, other than Melinda.
But ostensibly up till this point, she had spent 6 months in London, very peacefully, just studying a herd of
Mhm.
zombies. So until she got on Umbrella's radar, everything was
Right.
peachy, but it has not been for the past, I don't know, 24, 48 hours.
Right. But yeah, and so basically that's a sort of like cliffhanger, right? At the end of this is with like
Well,
Baxter sort of like hot on her heels
and like just shooting through from a drone, just firing away at all these people on the
right.
pier. Then there's another funny Baxter line where he asks one of the masked soldiers next to him. This might be in the third episode, where he's like, "Those are rubber bullets, right?" And the guard gets the funny moment because he just shrugs in all of his armor and doesn't say
Yeah.
anything. I'm just like, dude, this is good. This is
Yeah.
I don't yeah. So they're clearly not rubber bullets either because
No.
people are bleeding out and dying all over the pier. Um, and this leads into, I think, another fun, dynamic, action-packed 2036 storyline in this episode, where Jade hooks up with this family. I forget their names. The woman's name is Enya, which I think is
Yeah,
awesome.
which I think is awesome, right?
I
I
think
thought
is
they
the
were
boy
gonna go,
Liam, maybe.
yeah, the boys Liam, and they were gonna like the Enya thing. I thought that they were gonna like put in some sweet tunes, but they didn't. So
Oh, also in the last episode, she did get a chance to call Arjun, who is her partner, maybe,
yeah, I
who
think
is
so.
in Egypt, perhaps. We don't know exactly where he is, but he works for, and she goes into this a little bit more, where he is at the university, which is like a place where they're collecting and trying to bring back the world that was. B is the little girl, I think, who she got to speak to in the first episode, and B is at ballet practice. So things seem very
Yeah.
normal wherever Arjun is, as opposed to Dover, where she was, and now certainly where she ends up on this journey. She's also been told by Arjun to try to get to Calais, and to find, like, not to hook up with the Brotherhood, but the Brotherhood is better than Umbrella, is what we're learning. And so these are some of these factions that we got to see on a map in episode 1.
Right, and that the Brotherhood is crazy, and we get this sense from them, but that they will ally against Umbrella, apparently. So,
Maybe I feel like she's not expected to like meet up or join with them so much as just to escape Umbrella by going into their
yeah,
territory.
yeah,
But that doesn't stop Baxter at all, because he ends up in France at the end of this episode.
right,
Um, but yeah, but to get there, so the ferry thing doesn't pan out, right? Like the
nope,
ferry, everybody who was trying to get on the ferry gets shot, and
yep,
but some of these folks get to escape. Basically, it's going to be Jade and this family of 3, who are smuggling whiskey, is her understanding. That's why they couldn't get on the regular. There's apparently a legit way to cross the channel, which is just a regular ferry, and this was the smuggler's route. But she saves their kid from the drone, and so they all travel together to the channel, And I thought this
Yes.
was a cool little nugget of a story here where they meet the crew who are smuggling people through the
Yep.
tunnel.
Yep. And it's so funny because I was talking about the tunnel train with somebody like last week about just like how long you're underground. And so have you ever taken the tunnel?
Yeah, when I lived in Germany, I would take the channel like several times. It was like a really quick way to get to the UK.
Yeah, so it's like maybe you're underground like on a bullet train, like maybe like 15 minutes or so,
Yeah, it's
maybe
around there.
20. It's like so, but that's on a bullet train. But I love the idea that they were using this and kind of an interesting idea because the last thing you want to like this is like the longest tunnel in the dark that you can deal with. So I'm sure there's lots of weird stuff in there, which
I mean,
is
it's 31 miles long,
yeah, yeah. So
and
um
they're in like what is it, three Volkswagen buses that
yeah,
are
so it's
like
gonna
connected
take
to
them a
each other.
while. So it's gonna take them a while to like get in there, and there's lots of stuff in the tunnels, and this goes into the next episode that we see all this playing out the light. So I think we're probably jumping into this now.
Oh yeah, we're in there.
But there's lots of stuff sort of living in the tunnels, including the liquors, which make their appearance.
What was how? I'm confused by this a little bit. So her convoy, they're driving, everything's fine. There's a bunch of armed guards with them. Like these are coyotes who clearly they're
Right,
putting their lives on the line. Most coyotes, at least in this country, they just kind of like they pack you into a truck. They're not in any harm's way. They're just driving. If they get rolled up by border protection, maybe they'll be in harm's way. But for the most part, they're not having to be armed for the zombies who will attack them.
right.
These guys are like the deal seems pretty bad, I guess, for the armed guards who are with them. And
Yeah,
why do they stop in the liquor portion? Like, what is their plan? It doesn't get spelled out. It probably never will be. I don't understand it though. Why do they drive this convoy through this liquor tunnel and then stop there? Are they waiting for them to go away? Like, what's the deal?
I thought that they probably had some plan to like deploy something to like distract the liquors. That's what I
Mm.
thought because they go by sound, but we never got that far because obviously things went south pretty quickly because Baxter and his team show up and start making a bunch of noise and the
With
liquors start
sirens.
with
Yeah.
sirens and the liquors just start breaking into all the cars. And then of course Jade and the family like try have to like run around and escape through these like tunnels and
And devil horns. But that scene with the combat that breaks out around the liquors is it's like it's not like supremely choreographed, but it's
no,
like
but it's
you've got a combat with probably I don't know 10 liquors, probably
yeah.
dozens of people running around shooting with machine guns. Light is very iffy in these tunnels. I
Mm-hmm.
thought this was a great scene.
Oh, I thought it was a great scene, and I think they're kind of terrifying. Liquors seem to be a little easier to kill than we've seen in other iterations of Resident Evil. At least not easier, but like they don't seem impossible to kill, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when we run into liquors in the Resident Evil games and earlier movies, they are brand new. Like nobody knows what they're super strong,
Yeah,
but they're like brand new and people don't know. And you always have that ammunition scarcity thing that's a part of those
yeah,
games.
yeah.
In this one, like the Umbrella soldiers all have guns, although
Many,
they're getting wiped out too. But one
yeah,
of them has a flamethrower. I feel like they at least know what they're dealing with a little bit.
right. So it's a little different. But in any case, it is the kind of a fun little scene just because like Baxter and them just kind of walk right into it. Um, and then you've got like you're like okay great they escaped that and then like Jade I don't think this was like a huge shock. I knew one of this group must have been infected but it turns out that Liam the little boy has been bitten. And there's a lot of like foreshadowing or I guess like the way Jade talks about it you definitely and this actually
Oh,
adds to the tension of the other
the other
sort of
story. Yeah,
timeline,
that's a good
the other
point.
timeline that like she's basically like this, you think that he's your son, he's not the same person. And it's interesting because you're like, okay, I wonder what's gonna happen when we go back into the 2022 timeline. But that basically they're still trying to get out, but there's like these huge spiders that like a giant spider that starts attacking
Yeah.
And
And
Mark,
when it kills people, it's so brutal. It like
gross,
cuts people in
gross.
half and totally destroys Devil Horns, which I think is his name because it was in the captions when he was saying something off screen once. That's just the bald guy who was one of those security guards on the convoy. And then the dad also gets
Yeah,
cut in half.
it's pretty
And that
rough.
was
Pretty rough.
pretty cool. That was a cool scene because he goes out with that pole and he like hits it once. He's like, I got it. I got it. I thought that was well done.
And yeah, and then she still tries to convince Enya to leave Liam, and she won't. And so she just kind of goes on her own.
Also, Jade manages to kill the spider.
She does,
I mean, a
but
little bit unbelievably because that door closes so fast that it can cut a
right,
spider in half. But
right.
she, Jade is capable. We've already learned that, but she only continues to be very capable and good at closing doors. But yeah, is unable to persuade Enya to leave her little zombie kid behind, who is now like his eyes are going milky and he's starting to just do jaw
Yeah,
bitey things. So I think that's just that.
yeah,
That's that. So she stumbles out of the tunnels, but then
yeah.
there's Baxter waiting for her with his grin.
I
And
know.
but that doesn't last long because the French attack and then also knock out Jade. So they're not there to be friendly. They're just there to knock everybody out who come or shoot them who comes out of those tunnels.
Yep. And like, and then we see the in the other timeline, um, we get to see a little bit more of what has been happening to Billie, and like her dad is like Wesker is trying to like figuring out like how he can treat her, and so
And
we
that's
know,
complicated, of course, by Evelyn Marcus being all like, we have to present Joy to the board right now. So
right.
he can't really focus on Billie to the extent that like he injects a rat with some of her blood. The rat then turns into a zombie rat. And he's
Ugh,
like, oh, this is very disturbing and bad news, but he can't really act on it, which I thought was also a smart way of the show is making sure that Albert Wesker or Al or Wesker cannot address what is probably the most important thing, which is that Billie has definitely been bitten by a zombie dog and might be turning into a zombie. Like it's kind of he doesn't really get a chance to do anything about that.
right. But he's also like trying, like it's like this weird thing where it's like he knows the possibilities here, and she's like wanting to go to school. I mean, I would make something up, Al. I'd figure some way to like keep her home. I'd do anything.
She does
And
look fine when she comes and
sort
is like, I
of,
want to go to school.
but like it's really like not. I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like he's watching her walk out the door, and he knows that she's like this ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, she's definitely like um like the night before she was like in the bathroom like not wanting to see anybody, and like Albert knows what could potentially be happening with her and doesn't seem to really like deal with it. It just seems weird to me. Like he knows of all the possibilities, and he does know what happened in Raccoon City ostensibly. So you would think that he would take more steps to sort of protect everybody from Billie, but no,
Well,
that's
we
not
don't really know what they are, Billie and Jade. They're
right.
clearly not just normal people. Otherwise, he
No, they're
wouldn't be
definitely not.
injecting their blood into
They're
himself.
definitely not. And we do see like he does do a thing where it's like he looks at her bite and it looks like it's healed. So
Yeah.
so anyway, so maybe like, but anyway, she's having all this stuff go on.
Like
Like
the symptoms she's having at school are if I had one of those, I'd be like,
right.
yep, sick day. I'm heading
Yeah.
home. But
Yeah,
she
like
sticks
her.
around for an inadvisable amount of time, like through lunch.
Yep,
I'm
yep.
just like, nah, dude.
She's like hallucinating. She has the whole like the sound thing, like the skate. I thought she was gonna take the skateboarding kid out. Um,
Oh, she also punches her sister. But
yeah,
then like that kind of snaps her out of it because she feels super bad, runs home. And that's when we see Evelyn Marcus at the school and find out that her son is Simon, who is Jade's love interest, question mark, / hacker.
yeah, unclear. And I'm not sure if it's in this episode, but is this one where she talks to Angel and like sees some of the video, or
I think that was the
oh, and
episode two.
he has discovered that because like the teacher comes behind and like says Jade
Oh
Wesker, and
yeah, and
so
so
he
now he knows
knows.
that it's Wesker. Yeah, I thought that was kind of a funny little story where he's like, I'm a reporter for the Baja Press.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. It was fine. You need one of those whistleblowers.
Yeah. And but I feel like the drama of at least being back at school and that stuff unfolding is kind of interesting, as well as the drama between Wesker and Evelyn. Because like there's sort of a battle between them because it turned, we get more and more information about this pharmaceutical that they're trying to develop, which is called Joy. And the weird thing is though, is that it's like I couldn't tell is it like it has some of the T virus in it. It seems like that is inactivated. I
That's
don't
what
know.
Wesker says at the board presentation is like this was developed from it's like descended from the T virus, I
Yeah.
guess. And then yeah, so like Evelyn is apparently not surprised when he tries to torpedo the board presentation
Yeah.
because she's like, so how many pills of joy would you have to take to turn into a zombie? And he has to say 20,000. And so
Yeah.
like argument over. But I feel like the argument is going to be like Prozac and the drinking water or something
Right,
sort of
right, right.
thing, right?
Right.
So we'll see how it's all going to fall apart, and or Billie is now patient zero, and
Right. And then
nobody's.
there's the other weird thing with the board. It's like, oh, it's not just like that it's that we can control people. Like she shows the dog being reacting
Yeah.
like, and I'm like, how is that like good? I don't know. It just seemed very,
Well,
very evil,
oh,
like
it's super evil,
mustache
but
twirly.
like she paints it with like, oh, we're going to get rid of climate change and no more war or whatever. And she's like, and of course I get to decide what our priorities are going to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beyond, but it's also kind of it's still just a good thing or good script writing or whatever that Evelyn is not presenting it like we can get him to do whatever we want. We're gonna be super evil. She's painting it like, no, don't worry about it. We're just gonna like fix climate change. No big deal.
Yeah.
Did you also notice in this pair of episodes, I guess it was this episode 2, where Wesker name drops COVID. He's like, no, it's not like COVID. You don't have to
Yeah.
quarantine.
Yeah.
Which is just
Although, given what he knows, I would say it's even worse than COVID, and
it's
you
a
should
lot
damn
worse.
well, and you should damn well be quarantining. Like what an odd thing. And oh, and then there is the also the detail where it's like Jade and Billie, like after Billie is like attacking your sister, like she's hurt her hand and doesn't feel pain.
Yeah.
So she's got like all this weird stuff going on and she knows she's not okay.
And Jade gets to
So
tell her, yeah, Jade gets to tell her what Angel had told her on the video
right,
call about 72-hour time. And I feel like we had Jade and Wesker set a timer for like 50 hours or something during this episode. So that gives us another sense of like in the next episode or two, hopefully we'll have a culmination of this part of the plot. It is like kind of the high school storyline or the new Raccoon City storyline is a bit of a slow burn in that in Resident Evil, typically it like you have 15 minutes of calm and peace at the beginning of the show, and then everything
yep,
like all hell breaks loose, right? And they're definitely like trickling that out for this part of the storyline. But that's what makes it good about the 2036 because all hell is always breaking loose for
yeah.
Jade in the future. And so I think,
Well, and you definitely, I mean, I feel like you definitely have a desire to go back and see what's been happening. And they're teasing you with it because we don't see yet. We see how, I mean, we all know what happens with the T cell virus and what could potentially be happening with Billie. But there's also the fact that we know that Billie and Jade are not normal, clearly. And we don't know what Albert is using their blood for. But we do, I mean, I think there's still the tension that you feel like Billie is a time bomb waiting to go off and you want to know, hey, what happened to bring about this future that we now see with Jade. So I thought that was kind of well done. And I mean, I did read a few reviews of these episodes which people were not excited about that and felt like there wasn't tension building, but I definitely disagree. I think that they did a pretty good job at editing between the two timelines and building some of that tension and that like mystery. So I don't know. I really like I think I enjoyed it probably more than most people did, but
we're
I don't
clearly
know.
enjoying it more than a certain subsection
Right.
of
Yeah, true.
so-called self-professed Resident Evil fans. I have never been a huge fan of Resident. I mean, I've watched all the Mia
Yeah.
Jovovich movies, or almost all, but I'm not a huge fan. I haven't played a Resident Evil game since forever, So yeah, I'm 100% not that demo, but I like zombie stuff and horror, and so
Yeah,
yeah.
I personally I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying it more than I mean the rest of the franchise. So I don't know. I definitely respectfully disagree. And you know, the thing that you mentioned before just about the people are like, "Oh, about the Resident Evil," and like it's not being true to the history. And as I said before, I think that this is a totally fine reimagining of it, and I think it's actually kind of clever. I also still like stand by the fact that I think that the writing and the action sequences are excellent, and this the whole the cast is amazing.
Yeah, and the right
And
amount of humor in this script too really
yeah,
goes a long way.
and it's keeping it like, especially with Baxter and Melinda, and I mean in general, I just, and even with Evelyn, like you're just seeing sort of this like weird, like I think it's walking that line between, you know, not taking itself too seriously and sort of keeping the plot moving forward and being kind of dark. That it's, to me it's really enjoyable. So anyway, I look forward to watching the next couple of episodes and talking about it.
Yeah,
But I
and
definitely think that these ratings should be higher. So
nothing we can do about that, but people gonna be people. However, we're gonna keep watching this show and talking about it because it's fun. I hope you can come back and join us for that. We've also gotten a little bit of listener mail over the past week from Michael, who said that the Valley of the Dead, which we had initially called Malzanitos, I think it was what it was coming across as when we saw the trailer, the Netflix film about the Spanish Civil War and Nazi zombies. And
yep.
you gave it a good review. So looking forward to seeing that. And thanks for the heads up on that, Michael.
Yeah.
And so we'll be getting to that this summer. In addition to Tales of the Walking Dead, our cup runneth over, and we love it when it does. But yeah, if you want to get at us about this show, disagree, agree, we don't mind. It's reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at reanimatedpcast on Twitter, and our show notes are online at reanimatedpodcast.com.
And until next time, ciao.
Bye.